Hi, I'm Keeks, and I'll be your host today. Was this video just an excuse for me to get this cosplay? I don't know anymore. February is the month of love, and so it felt like the perfect time to review one of my favorite romantic comedy shoujo anime from my high school years, Ouran Highschool Host Club. I watched the show in January and took tons of notes and got ready to make my video around Valentine's Day. However, life got in the way, as it always does, and now you're seeing this video in March, which is honestly fitting because it kind of ended up not being as romantic as I remembered it being. Just kidding. You're seeing this in May, but time isn't real anyways, and there's nothing on this notepad. I found this show when I was starting high school, and I remember it being absolutely hilarious back then, but watching it again at age 25 opened my eyes to a new level of characterization and commentary going on underneath the surface. So whether you've never seen an anime in your life, or you're a super fan of Ouran Highschool Host Club, I ask you to join me for a friendly discussion of the good, the bad, and whether or not the show still holds up today. Also, before we go any further, I do not speak Japanese, and I will be pronouncing a fair amount of Japanese words and names in this video, so please give me some grace, I'm doing my best. And though I did read the manga back in the day, for purposes of this review, we will be focusing solely on what is contained within the 26 episodes of the animated series. Okay, let's dive in! I didn't remember Ouran Highschool Host Club.
Haruhi?
Yeah?
So you're a girl? You're not falling for me, are you?
No way! This is ridiculous.
It's your job to make this man more fashionable. Roger!
If you watched anime in the 2000s, or if you click around the anime section of Netflix these days, you've probably seen or at least heard of Ouran Highschool Host Club. We're gonna shorten it just to Ouran for the sake of me not losing a year of my life to recording this script. The show takes place at Ouran Academy, an elite upper-class school catering to the children of ultra-rich families. Our story begins as scholarship student Haruhi Fujioka searches for a quiet place to study, and stumbles into the domain of the Ouran Host Club, a group of rich young men who entertain female clients. When she accidentally knocks over a Renaissance vase worth 8 million yen, which is way out of her budget, she joins the host club as their errand boy to work off her debt. But the club finds out there's much more to their Haruhi than expected when they realize their errand boy is a girl unintentionally presenting otherwise. The show is a parody of common tropes found in shoujo manga and anime. Shoujo is a genre of manga and anime aimed at the young teenage girls demographic, and from my understanding, the phrase basically translates to young women. Despite seeming like a comedy on the surface, there's a lot more than just homoerotic fluff and jokes going on in the show. Ouran is a show themed around friendship, gender identity, love, and helping others. The series takes place in the Bunkyo ward of Tokyo, Japan, which is a residential and educational center in real life. The show aired in 2006 on Nippon Television in Japan and is licensed in America by Funimation. It was animated by Bone Studio C, which is known for animating series like Full Metal Alchemist, Soul Eater, and My Hero Academia. Little piece of trivia, in Greek, the word Ouranos means heaven, and in historical Japan, an Ouran was a courtesan to nobility, typically celebrated or revered for their charm, intelligence, and beauty. The main character of this story is Haruhi Fujioka. Haruhi comes from a middle-class single-parent family and is studying at Ouran Academy on a prestigious scholarship that requires her to remain first in her class. Haruhi's mother, Kotoko, died when she was 5, so it's just her and her father, Ryoji, at home. Ryoji is a professional cross-dressing entertainer who goes by the stage name Ranka. With how low-key Haruhi's personality is, I didn't expect her father to be so energetic and doting. Both Haruhi and her father think of Kotoko fondly, and Haruhi looks up to her, sometimes talking to her inside of her head. The thing that instantly struck me rewatching this series is Haruhi's indifference to how others perceive her or labels that may be applied to her.
Listen, Senpai, I don't really care whether you guys recognize me as a boy or a girl. In my opinion, it's more important for a person to be recognized for who they are rather than for what sex they are.
Though she acknowledges she is a biological female, she believes that gender holds no relevance to a person's roles in society or how they should be perceived. She isn't a fan of being put in overly feminine clothing, and she also doesn't mind giving her first kiss to a girl. Watching the show back in 2009 might be the first time I saw a gender nonconforming character being portrayed positively. So many trans and gender nonconforming characters in 2000s media are transphobic caricatures exploited for laughs, so it's really cool to see Haruhi being taken seriously and cast as the main character. A moment I find very telling about her background happens in episode 8, when she is surprised her hostmates care about her being in danger.
You made us all worry, especially Tama-chan. I think you need to apologize to him the most.
So you were worried about me? But why?
You grew up without relying on anyone else. But not anymore. You can come out now.
She's not used to asking for help, and her father discusses her self-sufficiency and lack of desire to rely on others a few episodes later. I believe Haruhi developed this self-sufficiency to a fault because she grew up assuming the maternal role of her home in her mother's absence. So being able to trust and rely on others is something Haruhi learns throughout the show, and I think it's actually a lesson that unifies the backstories of all members of the host club. It was fun to watch her grow alongside the rest of the club throughout the series. Haruhi is insightful, righteous, and completely oblivious to romance, which I find kind of hilarious. Multiple dudes are in love with her at different points in the show, and she has basically no idea. Since she doesn't care how other people see her or what they think of her, I can see her ability to perceive others' feelings for her being hindered. With having to maintain the top spot in school to keep her scholarship, she's very focused on studies and not so much on romance, which could be why she's so surprised when others confess feelings for her. Her view of the world is quite unique in the other characters' eyes, but she doesn't expect them to think differently than her. She's always surprised when they're impressed by her insights.
If you judge people by their appearance, you're stereotyping them and you'll never see the person inside. Who cares if Kyoya is a little different than you expected him to be? Take a good look at the person inside and get to know him little by little. It's a lot more fun that way.
You guys knock it off? What do you think you're doing? You don't bring something like this into a petty fight. Both of you are at fault here, but what's really sad is that you brought everyone else around you into your big mess. Now apologize to each other.
Maybe an image change isn't really what Casanova needs.
I think you're right. I sure hope he realizes it soon.
So then when you help someone, how exactly do you benefit from it? Money or reputation? Or is it more abstract? Because the way I see it, Tamaki-senpai gets something out of helping others that doesn't necessarily involve their paying him back. So maybe when you get right down to it, the two of you aren't all that different.
She's a little spacey, but I actually find that really entertaining. I related to a lot of aspects of her character, obviously as a non-binary person, but especially the way she's surprised when people find her insightful, because I find myself saying things that make complete sense to me that surprise people a little too often. She loves fancy tuna and being on stage, despite being a terrible singer, and is terrified of thunderstorms. I love these little details about her character. If there's anything we know about Haruhi, it's that she hates all these damn rich people.
I hate all these damn rich people. These damn rich people. Damn these rich people.
That's the most important thing. You have to learn to be a gentleman and please the ladies, like me.
I just don't think it's all that important. Why should I care about appearances and labels anyway? I mean, all that really matters is what's on the inside, right? I don't understand why you even have a host club like this.
It's a cruel reality, isn't it? It's not often that God creates a perfect person like moi, beautiful both inside and out.
Under Tamaki Suoh's suave and sparkly shell is a dramatic, emasculated, and overly emotional mess of a human. He's a half-French, half-Japanese student who serves as the president and main host of the club. When it comes to the club's patrons, he's a master of seduction, and 70% of all the club's business is booked by him. He's used to affluence and probably the most blissfully ignorant of all the host club members. Tamaki is very accepting of his peers, and ignorant of his own feelings and how his friends perceive him, which is as a very goofy and irrational man.
Tama-chan's completely blind when it comes to himself.
A stark contrast to the cultivated romantic front he puts on when working for the club. There's a lot more to Tamaki than meets the eye, actually. He's a great piano player. He's estranged from his mother due to being the illegitimate son of the chairman of the academy. She essentially bartered him away to his grandmother in exchange for a steady stream of money, and his grandmother doesn't like him. He's not permitted on the main family estate in Japan, only a smaller one on the side. So basically, his mom and him grew up super close, she sold him to his grandmother, and he spent the rest of the time till meeting the host club members feeling super lonely. This estrangement seems to have caused him to rely very heavily on his friends, and may be why he insists on referring to members of the club as a family.
Say, Mommy dear?
What is it now, Daddy?
We are gonna talk more about that in a minute. The only thing Tamaki did or said that I found genuinely questionable was his belief that there's no point in a lesbian relationship. I find this to be hypocritical considering he was already catching feelings for Haruhi when he still thought she was a dude. He was also non-judgmental when first meeting Haruhi, assuming she was a gay man and asking her what her type is. So that instance of him denouncing lesbian relationships seemed out of place for his character to me. He's a very sincere friend who loves with his whole heart and genuinely cares about helping others. For every guest that came through the door of Music Room 3, he was determined to help them solve their problems, regardless of if he would benefit from it. This makes him an unironically great president of the host club because he will stop at nothing to please his guests. Considering all that he's been through with his family, he turned out relatively normal, and I think that speaks to the quiet resilience veiled underneath the flamboyance.
I had to get my revenge too. I'm sorry. I just don't think I'm supporting caste, homosexual or otherwise.
Kyoya's character is largely very cold and calculating, with some moments of vulnerability in the second half of the series. Despite being a high schooler, he conducts himself like a businessman with years of experience, and that's because he spent his whole life trying to impress his father and surpass expectations others put on him. Since he's been so reliable his entire life, people tend to expect that reliability from him, and he fulfills it because it's expected. And he gets in this toxic loop of meeting others' expectations while not prioritizing his own feelings and typically just ignoring them.
I know. I'll never be successor to the Ootori family. I'm not like my brothers. All they had to do was follow the path that had been promised to them. A path that keeps heading upward. It's because I'm the third son that I can't relax. I must paint the perfect picture on a canvas that has already been placed inside a magnificent frame.
Everything you do exceptionally well. But tell me, will you ever be happy?
To be honest, whether I'm happy or unhappy has nothing to do with it.
The Outori family runs hospitals in the area and has a private police force that Kyoya is not afraid to flex if needed.
Take the Ootori family's private police force, the Black Onion Squad. It is said that they can be mobilized against our enemies in the blink of an eye. You have heard of them, right?
Kyoya typically determines the worth of interacting with a person based on the eliteness of their family.
He's like some kind of heartless tax collector.
He acknowledges that his friendships within the host club play a role in maintaining the business relationships of their fathers. However, there are a few moments where he does something selfless, and we get a glimpse of someone empathetic hiding under all that hardened businessman armor. There was a scene I didn't remember at all from my first rewatch that made me upset and uncomfortable and showed a frightening side to Kyoya's character. Content warning for sexual assault. If you are sensitive to this, please skip forward to the time on the screen. In episode 8, a very weird scene occurs after Haruhi fights men on the beach who have been harassing their patrons. Kyoya tells Haruhi she can pay for her actions with her body and intimidates her by climbing on top of her to teach her a lesson about her defenselessness. The words I would use to describe this interaction would get me demonetized, but I did not like this scene at all, and it made me trust his character even less, though Haruhi saw right through him and knew he was just posing as a bad guy. It just felt creepy and unnecessary, and enforced a certain culture that's one vowel away from rope. Unfortunately, this scenario led me to believe Kyoya may be the most sexist of any of the main characters, even if he had a point to prove and no intention of hurting Haruhi. It's still a pretty fucked up thing to do.
Kyoya, I just had the most brilliant idea. We should start a club together. Our first meeting will be after opening ceremonies on the first day of school. It'll be in Music Room 3 in the high school.
It's our responsibility, as members of the elite Ouran Host Club, to make every girl happy. Being a host and getting fussed over by a bunch of girls might not be that bad. I wonder how I can pull it off. I've got it. I'll just call everyone dude and bro now.
Nobody can make me change who I am, and I'm really grateful to Tama-chan and all of the host club because they've shown me that.
I'm sorry for running off and leaving you.
All of us would be completely lost without you, Senpai!
The host club is his refuge, which means when all is said and done, he still has us.
The host club is led by Tamaki and Kyoya, who make a good pair because Tamaki acts emotionally and Kyoya acts rationally. Kyoya is always concerned for the future and the finances of the club, and Tamaki tends to prioritize the emotional needs of his friends at the present moment. Tamaki seems to be relatively perceptive of others' feelings, despite ignorance of his own, and I loved the moment in their backstory where he called Kyoya out for giving up.
How can you possibly give up on being your family's successor so easily? You have no idea what it's like for me. You actually have a chance at it. All you have to do is try. Take advantage of your fortunate circumstances. Don't you realize the position that you've been blessed with?
Hold on. It sounds to me like you're the one who isn't trying. If you really want to surpass your brothers, then you can do it. But I think the one who's given up here is you, Kyoya.
The two biggest differences between Haruhi and the rest of the club are the contrast of her middle-class lifestyle compared to their lavish upbringings, and the way each boy fulfills a stereotype while she defies categorization.
Well, there's Tamaki, who is the princely type. There's the strong silent type. The boy Lolita type. The little devil type. And the cool type. And now our group is complete with the addition of Haruhi, the natural.
The natural?
Despite their differences, all of them seem to understand each other much more than they understand anyone outside of the club. They have a very exclusive mindset. The way they talk about other men is merciless.
Outstanding grades, fair social status. He's ordinary looking, but he's reliable. If I had to fault him for anything...
He doesn't have much presence.
And he's faint-hearted.
So in other words, he's boring.
I think this is just because of how tight their bond is. As much as we see them banter and bicker and mess with each other, there's a beautiful backstory to how they met and created the club, and they all kind of saved each other from something going on in their lives.
But Hikaru?
If it wasn't for Tamaki, then the two of us would still only be lost souls. We were able to become friends with Haruhi and the others because the host club brought us together.
There are some weird but funny dynamics going on in the club. I couldn't stop myself from laughing every time Kyoya and Tamaki refer to themselves as mommy and daddy. They do this so much, I'm just gonna show you.
I didn't care if I look like a dude, you know?
The girl should never refer to herself as a dude! Mama! Haruhi's using those dirty boy words again!
I'm sorry, but who is Mama?
Based on club position, I assume it's me.
Why is he sulking?
Because Mommy was keeping a secret from Daddy.
Whatever. Why does everyone insist on referring to us like we're husband and wife?
Do you really think I'd ever let Haruhi marry you guys?
Daddy says no! No! How could you do that? Daddy even attempted to look casual and not embarrass you! Daddy won't stand for that!
Please don't do this.
A weird extension of the whole family dynamic is Tamaki calling Haruhi his daughter, which I guess would be fine if they were just friends, but out of context of the stuff with him being estranged from his family, ends up being pretty fucking weird considering he's actually in love with her, but we're gonna talk about that in a minute.
Are you harassing my Haruhi? As her father, I forbid you to see her!
Wait, what? You're telling me that you're Fujioka's dad? You have got to be kidding me.
As much as I love their camaraderie and the way they welcomed Haruhi into their ranks, I admittedly was a bit bothered by the way most of the club treats Haruhi like a doll or an object, and especially the way Tamaki acted as if Haruhi belonged to him.
Hey, stop pushing so hard.
Get your hands off my Haruhi!
She doesn't belong to you.
Oh yeah? If not me, then who?
I do not belong to anybody.
I bet you were expecting a romantic AMV here, huh? Well, guess what? This couple kinda sucks, so you're not gonna get it. Just kidding. You can have a little one. As a treat. Lot to realize that rewatching the show because their story seemed so romantic to me when I was a teenager. Unfortunately, a lot of Tamaki's behavior toward Haruhi is weirdly possessive. There's a scene where he talks to Haruhi's father and still calls her his daughter. He was out of pocket with that shit. Unfortunately, he doesn't realize until almost the end of the series that his affection for her is romantic and not familial.
I need to sort this out.
Sort what out exactly?
If, supposing, I'm not my Haruhi's daddy after all,
We don't have to suppose it, boss.
then how can it be that I find her so utterly adorable?
And having this family setting will keep it all from changing, right?
Hey, Kaoru?
I don't understand.
He's an idiot!
It is pretty sweet the way he always tries to cater to her desires, though. He really only wants to do stuff if she wants to.
The beach would be nice.
You idiots. Haruhi's not interested in anything like that.
Actually, I might like to go to the beach. I may not be into this silly water park, but I like the ocean. It would be nice to go to the beach. And it's so pretty.
Yeah, all right.
I think when you boil it down, he just wants her approval. Meanwhile, Haruhi doesn't need his approval at all, and doesn't spend any time seeking it. Their whole dynamic is kinda like that. He's emphatic and over the top about everything, and she's very low-key and relaxed in most situations. I know in the manga they end up together, so there's more to this relationship than we got to see in the animated series. I found this specifically to be the most unsatisfying aspect of the show. Though it's typical for anime, I'm usually frustrated when the main characters don't actually get together until the last 5 minutes of the series, because it's hard to actually pull it off well. Unless the anime is Blue Spring Ride, but that's another video I'll get to eventually. My point is, the entire show is supposedly about romance, but the majority of the main romance between the two leads is one-sided, with Tamaki being into Haruhi, not really understanding it, and Haruhi being completely oblivious. There were a lot of episodes where the club helped out a guest, and I think some of those episodes could have been swapped for more interpersonal stories, rather than having the two lead characters get together during the actual credits of the final episode. I really wanted to talk about these twins as separate characters, because twins are more than just their twinhood, but the show really pairs them together and relies on them as a duo to tell their stories.
And another thing, how come this stupid script portrays Kaoru as the pitcher?
Yeah. What does that mean?
If you don't know, never mind.
I did not get that joke as a teenager. As a gay myself, I personally think the faked romantic relationship between these two is hilarious, but I can see how it wouldn't sit right with some people. The thing is that they truly have no actual romantic interest in each other, and we see multiple times throughout the show that they just have no shame at all in playing with the minds of the people around them, whether it's for personal gain or just out of sheer boredom. What's actually going on with these two is a codependent sibling relationship, with Hikaru being the much less well-adjusted one. Kaoru tends to play the role of the submissive one in the relationship for the host club patrons, but really is the more dominant one in the relationship in many ways. Hikaru is much less well-adjusted. There's an episode where Kaoru sets Hikaru up on a date with Haruhi so he can get close to people other than his brother. See, where Hikaru sees their twinhood as a symbiotic eternal pairing, Kaoru has a bit better of a grip on reality and knows his brother is much less capable of functioning independently than he is. When they're separated, Hikaru typically becomes anxious and concerned for his brother. Episode 16 was a great moment for these two characters because we got to see Kaoru push Hikaru out of his comfort zone and see Hikaru going out on his own to find Haruhi and comfort her during a thunderstorm. And apologize, maybe for the first time in his life, to someone other than his brother. Even amidst all this angst, they're still hilarious.
Twincest!
Despite being the same age and being cousins, there is a weird and uncomfortable dynamic going on between these two. But there's a reason. Turns out that past generations of their families saw Mori's lineage serving honeys, so Mori has sworn to protect him. Their dynamic is designed to either make the viewer laugh or feel uncomfortable, and I think for me it was both. Their relationship is interesting though. They're very close, and Mori feels very responsible for Honey's well-being. He kinda acts like Honey's dad or guardian. Mori is very calm and collected and thoughtful, and Honey is typically kinda bratty and childish. I like the scene where Mori saved strawberries for Haruhi because he knew she liked them. That was sweet. But the episode where Mori held himself personally responsible for Honey's sugar-induced cavity showed the more unhealthy side of their relationship. I just don't have much to say about these two. I like them, but the show doesn't get too deep into their characters. A main recurring theme of the show is helping others. That's what the host club has pledged to do. Since this is their main mission, we meet a lot of secondary characters who appear for 1 or 2 episodes to receive assistance in some way from the host club, and there are a few who stick around after their problem is solved. Renge is the first of these characters. We meet Renge early on in the series when she comes to the school to meet Kyoya, who she believes is her future husband. However, Kyoya has no idea who she is, and that's because she's been playing a dating sim game with a character who looks exactly like him. After her crush on him fades, she sticks around to be the manager of the host club and gets them in some wacky scenarios, my favorite being when they made that movie that was supposed to project a certain image about the members of the host club. Sorry, but I just don't enjoy the episodes centered around either Nekozawa sibling very much. Repairing their relationship was a great way for the club to continue their pledge to help somebody, and it's kind of funny that Kirimi confuses Umehito and Tamaki, but I caught myself tuning out a little bit for these two. Lobelia Academy is a girls' school, and the female version of the host club pops into Ouran a few times, mostly to try and steal Haruhi away. They're basically coded as a lesbian host club, and some pretty funny stuff happened with them or because of them, too. Kasanoda was by far my favorite secondary character because I felt like his story was the most meaningful of all the host club guests. When we meet him, he's an outcast with resting bitch face who wants Mori's help becoming more sociable. And you think he's just gonna be another one of those single episode types, but he sticks around for a while and gets to know the main cast better. The club gives him the nickname Bossa Nova and teaches him how to be more approachable. He actually catches feelings for Haruhi before he finds out she's a girl, which gave us a pretty cute storyline about their friendship. Some really funny shit went down with Noda too, and I love how he's always talking about playing kick the can with the boys. So wholesome. I really enjoyed watching his episodes over again while I was finishing the script, and I wish more of the show had been stories like his. He's a soft soul and a crusty exterior, and it's pretty awesome how much character development they fit into his 2 episodes. I love the pilot of this show so much. The lights switching on as each character makes the realization is brilliant, and back in the day, I actually didn't get it until they revealed Haruhi being a girl at the end of the episode. As a non-binary adult, I definitely picked up the vibes though. I love small details put into the line work of this show, like this moment, where the line weight of Tamaki's hand is thicker than the rest of him to show that it's closer to the camera. The show looks beautiful despite being 15 years old. There are some stunning establishing shots and watercolor scenes throughout the show. The animators also do these silly little animation gags that make me laugh every time I see them.
Announce the queen of the ball!
Congratulations, Princess Kaneko Kasugazaki!
Yabu?
That's crazy. What a terrible name for a doctor. Unless you're a quack.
I know. I'm here because I was hoping to see my daughter. My wife left me last month and took my daughter with her, but I know that she attends school here.
I think you're fine just the way you are now, Senpai.
You do? Well, if you say so, Haruhi.
If he gets in touch with his darker side, he'll be that much more trouble.
Don't eat that meat, Skinny. It's bad for you.
It was so garish and ridiculous looking, I woke up screaming.
Don't you worry. We're going to get her out of that place.
The opening theme sequence is really beautifully animated and suits the show very well. The art is really nice and colorful with thick outlines and some lovely rotating shots. I've watched the Japanese dub before, but for my rewatch I did the English dub so I could pull clips, and the voice acting in the dub felt really natural and expressive. There are a lot of laughably bad dubs out there, but this isn't one of them. The music throughout the series subtly contributes to comedic scenes and timing. There's typically either jangly guitar-driven music or very baroque, classy, romantic, orchestral instrumentals going on behind most of the scenes. I appreciate the variety and the very intentional use of instrumentation to set the mood and feel.
Mitsuki, you've made a mess.
You know, even though this whole thing may look and feel just like a happy ending, I'm not sure everyone out there would think moe is the best way to wrap things up. Oh, good grief.
Since the show's satirical, there is a lot of meta humor and references.
This anime is obviously a romantic school comedy. Haruhi and I are the main characters, so that means we are love interests. Yeah, then what are we? You boys are the homosexual supporting cast.
Mori-senpai? Why the sudden lunge?
You're not getting enough attention?
Please calm down, Mori-senpai! I know you're upset that you only have one line an episode! We're 3/4 through the season and you haven't had your own episode, is that it? I'm sorry!
There are fun plot lines or problems in each episode and subplots where the club helps people out. Episode 3 is all about the club keeping Haruhi's gender identity a secret during a doctor's exam, but the subplot is about them helping the father of a public school student who's just trying to contact his daughter. Episode 13 is a dream sequence of Haruhi's first day at Ouran, parodying Alice in Wonderland. It's a cool episode with nice art, but since it's just a dream, the only thing it really reflects is Haruhi's mental state rather than having any stronger bearing on the story. So I guess it's an art episode. As fun as it was, it kind of felt like filler. I was glad that Kasanoda's storyline came in toward the end of the show to pick up the pacing again. Given all of the homoerotic content and gender play in the show, it seems to have been quite progressive for its time of release, 2006, but Japan is a different social climate, so my understanding of that isn't perfect. Although I don't see a ton of buzz about this show online anymore, which is understandable 15 years out from its release, the show seems to have become a favorite of LGBTQIA+ anime fans due to its portrayals of sexuality and gender. A lot of those fans headcanon Haruhi as non-binary or gender fluid, and given what she says about gender presentation throughout the show, I think this is absolutely correct. One of my main issues with Ouran upon rewatch was the lull that happened in the middle of the series. From around episode 11 to episode 22, I was surprised at how bored I was. When the show focuses too much on one or two specific characters, it feels like filler and the story kinda loses its momentum. And honestly, I felt like they were a little bit less funny as well. Of course, there are some terms that are a product of their time or environment and are not acceptable today. The T-slur is used multiple times in relation to Haruhi's father. As a non-binary person, it's hard to ignore that word being thrown around regardless of the circumstance. American shows like Law & Order SVU were casually throwing that term around in the 2000s as well. So, as much as it sucks, it's not surprising. If the show ever gets a revival, I would hope that they would phrase things more politely in the English dub. It's one of those things where having the character at all was progressive back then, but today would most likely be considered offensive because of the way they talk about the character. It's a little weird because Haruhi and her dad are both gender nonconforming, and yet her dad's presentation is presented a lot more comedically, which may be rooted in trans misogyny. My favorite episode is episode 24, the origin story of Tamaki and Kyoya's friendship. I wish more of the show had been like this arc, and I think it showed the most potential of any of the episodes. However, if you are gonna watch this show, rather than recommending a specific episode, I do recommend you watch the entire series. It just makes more sense that way, and I think watching 1 or 2 episodes to get an impression would not give you a full understanding of all of the characters, and would lack the context to make the watching experience enjoyable. It's only 27 episodes and they're 20 minutes, so it doesn't take too long to watch through the entire thing. There has been some info thrown around about a possible renewal of the series, but at this point, it's been so long since there was new information, it seems dead in the water. I'd be happy to watch new episodes if things were to change, but it doesn't seem likely. Do you remember a time in your life when the smallest interactions between you and another person felt like life or death? A time when the simplest gestures could completely change the way you perceived everything? For me, watching Ouran High School Host Club is like revisiting that feeling of teenage frustration, of loneliness, of desperately searching for a place to belong and for somebody who will love me no matter how I present myself. I was in that type of headspace when I first saw this show, but it's been 10 years. A lot has happened to me. I found out what real love is like. I found people who understand and accept me. I achieved independence. Essentially, I grew out of it. So when I started my rewatch, I was expecting something different than the comedy that I got, something much more romantic, and that was a shock to my system. Ouran High School Host Club was not how I remembered it, and that's okay. There are some shows that are timeless, and there are some shows that I think we're kind of meant to see at a certain time and have it resonate with us then, and maybe we don't need to revisit it, because seeing something you used to love in a new light can be painful. But it's okay to acknowledge what a piece of media did for you and acknowledge its flaws in the same breath. That's what rewatching Ouran taught me, and that's why this video took a while. I've been learning a lot about expectations lately, and about how to handle the situation when someone or something isn't what you expected. I'm still learning, but I think the answer is just to run with it, look at it objectively, see the negatives and the positives, and accept it for what it is. Do I continue loving this piece of media, or leave it in the past because it doesn't hit the same anymore? Do I stick around when someone I know turns out a bit different than what I thought I knew? These are questions that go a bit deeper than Ouran, but my experience rewatching it got me thinking, and I think that's really worth something. I'm glad I paid another visit to the Host Club in Music Room 3, but I think it might be time to leave the Academy behind. I'm 26.
Ready, set, and so we open the door. 1. Good looks that attract the public eye.
2. More wealth than you can imagine.
3. Chivalry that we'll never be able to overlook.
The hideous wickedness of this world.
That's what makes up the Ouran Host Club! They all said they were put out by the Host Club.
Everyone loves being in the Host Club! We really do! Even me, Senpai! I love being part of the Host Club too!
The hardships that he endured as a child helped mold him into the person he is today. He'll be fine.
Look at you, you're soaking wet.
A little water never hurt anyone. Besides, people are always telling me that I'm dripping with good looks. Remember, you're welcome to visit us in Music Room 3 whenever you'd like to.
The Ouran Club will be waiting for you.
And we want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
We'll see you then.
Thank you so much for joining me for another full series review. Stay tuned for a cover of the Ouran theme song coming soon. When you're done here, don't forget to subscribe and check out my Patreon. The cheapest tier costs $1 and you get a look behind the scenes of the channel and some bonus content. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, you know the drill, @offbeat kiki. Links for all that in the description. Stay safe, stay hydrated, get vaccinated, don't give up, and I'll talk to you soon.
Can I ask you kind of a weird question?